A man suddenly collapsed and fell onto the train tracks. At that moment, a train was approaching. Rather than offering help, the other passengers took out their phones and began taking pictures. Seeing the indifference of those around him, John immediately jumped onto the tracks without hesitation. However, at 60 years old, John lacked the strength to lift the man alone. He loudly urged the other passengers to help him. Together, they managed to lift the unconscious man off the tracks. But at that point, John was still standing on the tracks. The passengers on the platform were frantic, urging him to climb up quickly. But John turned to face the oncoming train, as if he had already accepted his fate. Just then, he noticed a young boy standing on the platform. Perhaps John feared that his death might leave the boy with a lasting psychological scar, so he reluctantly reached out and allowed the other passengers to help him back onto the platform. However, John didn't thank anyone. Instead, he muttered angrily as he walked away. He then went to a flower shop and carefully selected a bouquet of roses. When he went to check out, he handed the cashier a coupon. The cashier explained that the coupon required the purchase of 2 bouquets. John became furious and argued with her. The cashier, not wanting to argue with the elderly man, asked him to step aside so the next customer could pay. Reluctantly, John bought a second bouquet. With the flowers in hand, John went to his wife's gravesite. He gently wiped the tombstone and placed the flowers in front of it. He expressed his deep longing for her. Perhaps, in front of her, he felt he could show his softer side. Afterward, he spread out a newspaper on the ground and lay down beside the tombstone. In that moment, it seemed like he had forgotten all his troubles. After leaving the cemetery, John returned to work at the factory. His colleagues in HR called him into the office. After some small talk, they subtly suggested that John might be offered a new job opportunity. However, after working at the company for 40 years, John sneered. He knew very well that he was about to be fired. Their words had been hinting that his traditional skills were no longer in line with the times. Understanding this, John chose to resign on his own. He then drove back to the cemetery, sitting in his car for a long time. There was nothing left in this world for him to hold on to. When he returned home, John began to dress up. After putting on a suit, he stood in the center of the living room, where a rope he had prepared for himself hung from the ceiling. He gazed at his wife's photo, thinking that he would soon be reunited with her. Slowly, he stood on the stool, and in that moment, his heart was free of any attachments. He seemed to see his wife in heaven, waving at him.